Hi, everyone. I'm Gabriel Berger. I'm CEO of Think Analytics. Eric was nice enough not too long ago, a few days ago, to reach out to me. I guess I'm his stand-in for his part. You know, you just want to sit back and look hot with your hat. It's fine. Otherwise, I don't have a chapeau, so you'll have to excuse me. But I'm the CEO of Think Analytics. So the best way to describe Think Analytics, if you ever, we surface up about 5 billion content recommendations a day, and I'll go into that a little bit more. But that kind of speaks to our scale. We do it in 43 languages, all that. But in a way, that only speaks to one part of our business. What we're going to do here is that, as you know, no good deed goes unpunished with metadata. It's a really boring subject sometimes, but for the people who really like it, we are a twisted and talented bunch, and we love that kind of stuff. So we're going to talk more about that role of metadata and how it really impacts content discovery. But first, I want to give you kind of a notion of the landscape, is that we really are living in the new Hollywood, right? And what that means is a couple of different things. It's really, at this point, let me get on the slide, it's never been easier to jump ship, right? This is not theoretical. I gave this presentation at Mesa 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, Netflix lost $24 billion in valuation because they didn't make their numbers, right? They were 137,000 subscribers short as related to the US, and also missed their other numbers, right? Reed Hastings lost, I think, approximately about $850 million personally, right? So what we're seeing is a couple of different things. We're in this new Hollywood, but I would also say the corollary to that statement is television is the new television, right? Meaning someone's got to get paid, right? That's still how it works. Cat videos are lovely. I love Fail Army. I think it's hysterical. But for the people that are in this room, we are Hollywood, right? People in the credits of a TV show and a movie, they're people that we may know or we're part of that business. It's very, very important. So while we're in a new Hollywood in terms of volume, in terms of velocity of the content, man, there's a new premiere every day right now, right? And the variability of Hollywood. I would say what's really the most challenging of all those 3 V's is the velocity of Hollywood, right? It's just the supply chain has just done this. So we're in this new Hollywood, to be sure. So the battle for the consumers can be lost on a lot of data decisions. What does that mean? It means, number one, is that content still is king. No question about it. I mean, that's really what happens. That's what drives it. But at the same time, there are now 238 direct-to-consumer OTT companies in the United States, right? And the big ones haven't even come to the plate. So you're now, everybody kind of girding their loins here for the next, call it, year and a half, where people are making table stakes. So what's going to make the difference? And what we saw, because I've been doing this a while, is that 7 years ago, for like content recommendation, everybody kind of checked that box. What would happen is that there were companies like mine that would come in, and what they would do is go into sort of data science bake-off. And the data science bake-off would be, okay, everybody kind of came out in the same lane. Maybe someone would falter or couldn't take VOD content and recommend it and correlate with linear or live content, something along those lines. But then it came down to who you wanted to work with, the deal, your comfort level, like that. Now, what we see is that second generation, everything slowed down. The reason it slowed down is because everybody had to get their content rights together. They had to start getting better metadata providers, source metadata like Gracenote or Rovio, whatever it may be. They had to get their DRM together. They had to get their security together. And each studio, one day it would be you have 2 devices. One day you can have 3 devices. It just kind of changed. Now, all of a sudden, man, this is a living, breathing thing. This is a business. This is no longer a theoretical exercise. So now what you're seeing is that the content people want to be more like, have more knobs and dials to understand how you combine the human element and the algorithmic element with everything to create the best engagement experience. Because now that's what we're seeing. We're in this engagement economy, right? So you started from this information economy to now this engagement economy / attention economy. So this is pretty important stuff. The other part is devices. How many devices and how do you make the content more applicable for each device, right? So we run and power 50 million mobile devices in India right now with Viacom 18, and we do personalized content recommendation in 8 different languages, right? The key in scaling is that when we're doing 42 million and it's been growing, we didn't break a sweat. We were able to handle it. Also, what you don't want to do is alienate a customer that if you're only able to carousel 3 pieces of artwork on a set-top box, don't give them 20 different choices for recommendation. Have it throttle accordingly to those experiences. And the services minefield, again, they go from the sublime to the ridiculous, right? There can be Netflix, and I know there was an SVOD service trying to make it. It was all about the Titanic. That's literally what it was about. It was about the Titanic. An SVOD service that went to market, and may still be there, about just the Titanic. And if they succeed, they're going after a very specific audience. They're going to get their $4.99 a month, and that's what it's going to be. So now you're in this, how do you organize these different shelves? Well, this kind of gets into where art meets science. So what we do a lot is tuning algorithms, having different kind of use cases. We have 20 different use cases that come out of the box. Use cases for us is, how is it going to appear on your screen? What am I going to give you for a recommendation, right? That's really, really important. But on the information sciences side, there's got to be this nexus. And what we do is that we are able to bring in enormous amount of metadata. Root metadata, ITER, it could be IMDb, it could be all these different sources. But what we saw is that the algorithmic only gets you so far, and in point of fact, the human element is becoming more important, not less important, right? This is why our Netflix brothers and sisters, who are clearly the Zen masters of metadata, because they can make their catalog look bigger than it is, even though it's getting smaller every day, right? I mean, that's a statistical, empirical fact. That's what's happening. They're extremely good about it, but they understand that certain types of data sets, like how much a Coke can is in a frame, you know, or closed captioning, those are interesting data sets, but they're still noise. They're still frame level. They won't be over time. It will become a viable data set. I think that's getting there, but it's still a little noisy right now. What we believe what you got to do is really concentrate on metadata, the information about the information of the content. So we bring in all this other content, but then on the information sciences side, what we do is we augment that metadata. There's all manner of metadata, like technical metadata. We do more for the efficacy of better search and recommendation. So what we've done is that we've tagged over 2 million pieces of content, and growing all the time. And we've also created an enormous amount of facets. So we've created 25,000 facets, mood, subject, like that, to give weighted metadata to your personalization and your personalization. And we have the system, the data science, to be able to react very quickly. Because remember, velocity is what's really the most challenging thing, right? Because we're in this either advertising VOD or transactional VOD. People want more and more information. I would also say nobody needs any more data. Okay, we are awash in data. We need actionable insights. This is what we need. So all this combined really gives what we call meaningful personalization. So what we do is provide 3 different services at my company. One is this metadata enrichment, taking catalogs and creating granular content intelligence around this. And this has a lot to do with recommendation in and of itself. I was with somebody who runs the content recommendation for Home Depot. Not the content, excuse me, the recommendation for their metadata is pretty important, because the metadata about a 5-inch screw as opposed to a 7/8 screw is really important when you're building a swing set, right? You've got to have the right stuff. This isn't just nuanced stuff. It's really important to manage that supply chain. So in terms of the supply chain, knowing and having more intelligent content information is extremely important. Phase 2 is to take that information in a B2B environment and say, if I'm Sony or if I'm Apple, who's putting tons of money into content, or Quibi or Warner Brothers, and I'm like international sales, what's in the building? What do I have to sell? How do I create A/B testing on just the content to see, there may be content in my library I didn't even know was relevant, but if I look at the hierarchical metadata tagging, I can see exactly how important it is. And the last is what we do mostly, which is provide these 5 billion recommendations or decisions a day. But more importantly, how do you follow the life of that recommendation? How do you know, right? To create kind of insights and best practices to do that. So the iceberg of metadata could be ITER metadata, it could be all manner of metadata, and again, that enriched curated tags of metadata that go below the surface are really the difference in granularity. So how do we bring it all together? First, we use a lot of AI. AI is Tuesday for us. It is not theoretical, right? We have to get over this demystifying of artificial intelligence. This is our background. We started in academia with data mining, which beget machine learning, which then really at this point has begun AI. That's how we run our business. 80%, a lot of our customers, everything runs by its inertia completely. No one touches anything. But more and more, the human element wants to be integrated. I'll give you a perfect example. There's an award every year for the worst movies of the year, right? It's called the Razzies. No algorithm's coming up with the Razzies yet, right? No, it's not the way it works. What do you think happens to every one of those titles when they're pronounced as a member of the Razzies? Yeah, more engagement, right? So a person isn't going to think about that unless you create a data set for Razzies, right? So it's important to understand what the difference is. The other part is to be able to understand very quickly what's going on, right? The other part is to bring your people in slowly. What we see a lot of is a lack of best practices. How you start off with somebody that you want to take one customer or a group of customers or the group of profiles that's under a tastemaker that is Sean Penn's recommending these movies, whatever it is, but you want to start off slowly, and then you want to spread out. So you want to start off with, let's say, a 90% match, and then break it out and spread out the comfort level of that particular client, and you do that with weighted metadata. The other thing we got going for us is mistakes. We got like 14 years of mistakes of how not to do this. This is exactly the most important thing is best practices. You crawl, walk, run. Where do you start? You start somewhere. What determines that somewhere? What are your business objectives? What are you trying to prove? We measure everything in conversions, right? That's all about who took the recommendation, right? Did they take it? Now, a 4% conversion, if you're selling a box set of Star Wars, man, they should put you in the Marketing Hall of Fame. That would be amazing. But if you're just saying, hey, watch more on this channel, maybe 4% is okay. You know, as you tie it into programmatic advertising, et cetera. So just the chest-pounding slide here. Again, we do 5 billion recommendations per day. We're doing this with all Tier 1 customers. We only do big, right? We do BBC. We just launched with DAZN, which is the Netflix of sports. There's a perfect example of if you mess up with sports, they don't come back. Live sports, no way. They're gone. So you have to have very Sprite technology. We have to allow, in that case, for 60,000 transactions per second to be able to handle that kind of volume. We do this with, again, Tier 1s, BBC, Viacom, Discovery. We just launched with RAI. We just launched with Viacom in India. These are very, very big deployments. We do this in 43 languages, actually. So we understand the importance of languages. This is the biggest differentiator. With a very large pay TV company in Latin America, they gave us their entire Grace Note catalog. We ingested it. We launched in 2 weeks in 3 languages. In English, Portuguese, and Spanish. And it's not just multi-language, it's multi-linguistic. How do you blend recommendations in a diaspora household where there are different types of ethnicities in that household? And we're doing this in 38 countries. So we think the importance of metadata is there, is the underlying intelligence of all this. We are growing constantly. We think the next big move is just providing more and more knobs and dials to product people and creative people. So at the very least, they can empirically justify what they probably intuitively know. So that's it. Any questions? I'd be happy to take them.